For those of us who are brand designers, and I submit that anybody at this conference, whether they're designing their own brand or they're doing it on behalf of a company or a group of people, we're all essentially brand designers. It's our collective mandate to help our clients, again, that could just be ourselves, our brothers, to become interactive regardless of technology. Remember that pop-up book at the beginning of this. So given that the web is a child of interaction, it was created for interaction, how does one go about succeeding? We've covered a lot of ground today, and all of these threads actually do come together in one fabric. Here's a few, hopefully, modest words about the nature of digital branding today. Dialogue, authenticity, and interactivity. It's these three things that come together to make brands successful. And again, we're not thinking of interactivity as interaction. This needs to be appropriate for your audience, no matter what generation it is, no matter what product you're hawking, no matter what messaging platform or architecture you want to put out there. Some rules for this. Do no harm, then do some good. I was at Microsoft for a long time, and I watched them continue to pack features into products that nobody wanted. In fact, they packed so many in that they innovated by hiding a lot of the features so you weren't so confused about them. Another erstwhile attempt was my favorite guy, Clippy, who sometimes suggested that maybe you weren't writing a letter, or maybe you were filing a tax return, or whatever it was certainly not what you were doing at the time. That's an example of doing harm by adding functionality. In some ways, what made the iPod so brave was its courage to reduce functionality in an MP3 player, lower the cognitive load, and be more successful as a result. Keeping in mind that interactive is not always digital. I showed you a pop-up book before, but the more recent phenomenon of pop-up stores I think is some of the best interactive going on right now. If you're not familiar, Google it. It's pretty fantastic stuff taking place. Brand yourself interactively. Again, this could be the smiling face and the handshake, but it could just be a willingness to be authentic and reach out to people in a real way, regardless of the medium. Old is the new. Sorry. Do air quotes. And that just means that all the same old rules apply. We've got a little bit caught up with technology, I think in the 90s especially, that it was the great commodification of web pages, home pages, remember when they're called home pages? And they kind of lost track of everything from the basic principles of graphic design to really what made brands successful back in the olden days. And that had to do with having products that really did what you said that they would do. Understand and practice the virtues of transparency. This, again, is not a choice. This is a cost of entry. If your brand sucks or you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, somebody's going to out you. If you're a celebrity, maybe it's TMZ. If you're some pop culture star from somewhere else, it might be Smoking Gun, but if somebody out there is looking at what you're doing pretty much every step of the way, and thanks to Moore's Law, they have the tools to do it. And so if you try to ignore that and say something that's patently untrue, you're going to get caught. So why not just be transparent? Why not just realize that dialogue is taking place whether or not you participate in it, and decide to participate in it, not with an aim of changing or manipulating it, but with an aim of just being honest. I think we could just all use a little more of this these days, especially from Wall Street. Embrace your constituency with authenticity. Kind of what I just said. That's what I have for you today. A few other things to show you, but we've got about 10 or 15 minutes, and I wanted to open this up for some conversation. If there's some questions or comments, ridicule, that's good too. But go ahead and shoot. You can just stand up and shout. There's a microphone there too.
I've been dying to ask this one. In terms of transparency, what's your take on companies that hire ghostwriters to write their blogs or see the internet with articles on their behalf?
Yeah, I think there's a big slippery slope there. It's like having the right look, but not the right feel. It's you're creating, you're using the medium in an old way, and you're still trying to manipulate it. Now, that doesn't mean that ghostwriters can't be people that more effectively write copy, but if I read a CEO blog, I want to hear exactly what that CEO is saying, and if he's not or she is not creating the outline and the words and the ideas, then I personally wouldn't buy it. And I'm going to find out over time whether or not they're doing it authentically or they're hiring someone else.
You alluded to a little bit earlier that there was some new, the latest and greatest in social media and connecting. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
About social media?
Well, I know you mentioned Facebook. When you were talking about the statistics, you said this is now, and what will be the next MySpace, what will be the next Facebook. I would be interested to see your thoughts on that.
Yeah, you know, I wish I had a crystal ball. It's pretty cloudy at the moment, but the thinking my colleagues and I have in Seattle is that it's not going to be about closed domains. That Facebook, MySpace, remember Friendster? Remember how popular that was? And it kind of went away. That they're sort of the CompuServes and AOLs of their time. That they are, in some ways, closed domains, and that what we're going to see with social networks is a certain ubiquity of the tools that are used, because they're all pretty similar, whether you're writing apps or you're creating just an ability to chat. Right, bad interactive, dude. Wow. That we're going to see these social networks tie together, and they're not going to be under one brand that's valued by one big media conglomerate, but instead the technology is going to enable this across a wide variety of networks, and we're going to think less about, just like the web wasn't CompuServe or MSN or AOL, it's going to be one big community that hopefully includes all of us. Anything else? Well, I'd need everyone shy. Back there.
When you're actually coming up with, whether it be a marketing initiative or a project where you're trying to cater to a brand and create a brand, is dialogue kind of the first thing you think about and then kind of break things apart from that? Or what's your usual kind of process to go about that?
That's a great question. No, we don't think about dialogue first. We think about dialogue along the way. So again, cost of entry. A brand is about a gut feeling. So creating that gut feeling is the first and most important thing. How is it going to show up in the marketplace? And that's very different if you're an airline or if you are a real estate website. Both of them need and require dialogue, but they need and require different kinds of dialogue. So this is why it's important to be appropriate, not just for your generation, but for your audience. So dialogue is something, an ingredient that comes along the way, but not necessarily a causal factor or a founding principle. Yep. Anybody else? Come on, I'm really going to fail at interaction if I don't get you to ask questions. Go ahead.
The majority of my clients are pharmaceutical clients,
Right on.
and so they're very much in the space right now of what can we do to start this dialogue. Obviously, they're pretty weighed down by regulations
Sure.
and all that. But what sort of tactics, what sort of things would you recommend kind of as a starting point for brands that are just so weighted down in that sort of opinion mire?
Yeah, that's another great question. The big thing that big pharma has, and even I have those clients as well, that they seem to be most afraid of is, what if somebody says something bad? Well, guess what? Somebody's going to say something bad. And there's not a damn thing you can do about it. So again, do you want to participate or not? And what I've seen be most successful for these kinds of clients is actually creating communities to discuss things without, and maybe they sponsor them, but they do it in a very light-handed way, so that people that are out there and they have rising PSA levels or something, well, the thing that they're first going to do is get online and Google it, and they want to find other people to